All right, thank you very much. So my name is Melissa Wiley, and I'm the CEO and president of the Florida Trust for Historic Preservation. I'm very excited to be here with you guys today. This is our second Lunch and Learn for 2024. Our Lunch and Learns are a program that we do each year where we just, now that we have Zoom, it's a very convenient way to reach out and engage with those in our 8 regions around the state and share information and resources that might be helpful for them to do the work they need to do in historic preservation in their communities. So our first Lunch and Learn this year was in January, and it consisted of our advocacy initiatives for the year. Sessions started in January. It was a January start, so we kicked off session with that Lunch and Learn. Today, we're doing this wonderful conversation around how to get involved with the Florida Trust. Then next month, we will be doing a conversation about our Preservation Awards program. We have some really exciting updates to the Preservation Award program, and we really want to utilize it as a community outreach tool to share the full story of preservation work and success, and I guess lessons learned from around the state. So we're very excited about doing that next month, and there will be a slide at the end of this session that will have more information about that. And then just briefly, in April, we will do our Lunch and Learn about historic designations and the difference between different kinds of historic designations and what that means and how we can utilize those as preservationists. May, we will be doing our Lunch and Learn around Historic Preservation Month, so that'll be fun. And then finally in June, I'm very excited. We're going to be doing our Lunch and Learn with historic preservation photographer Mark Kranzer, and he's going to be talking about how we can do some really great photography, our very own selves, to help tell the tales of historic preservation, and also how photography can be a tool for historic preservation, not only telling the stories, but also as a way to get us connected with grant funding potentially, all those kind of fun things. So that's going to be a great Lunch and Learn I'm excited about for June. Then we'll take a break during the summer and come back again in the fall with some more stuff. So if you have ideas for Lunch and Learn content that you'd like to share with us, we would be happy to get that. So thank you. Let's see. All right, so here's who we're going to hear from today. You guys already know me. But we're also going to hear from Mike Cosden, who is our board president, and he will introduce himself here in a second. Jenny Wolf, who is our past board president, and then also Daphne Kirkpatrick, who is our business and communications manager. So those will be the folks that we'll be talking with today. So I'm just going to look and see. Very good, thank you. So to start, I just wanted to give some context before we start, I guess, talking about why you should engage with the Florida Trust. We might want to talk about what the Florida Trust is. So this is our mission here, Florida statewide nonprofit dedicated to promoting the preservation and the inclusive sharing of the diverse architectural, historical, and archaeological heritage of Florida. That's our mission statement. So we are a 501c3 charitable nonprofit. We are the statewide nonprofit for Florida. We work very closely with the Department of State and Division of Historical Resources. We work very closely with the National Trust for Historic Preservation, another nonprofit, and then of course with nonprofits around the state. We were established in 1978 in response to the almost demolition of the historic Capitol building here in Tallahassee. So that loss really kind of drove people to realize we needed someone, an organization, to fill this role so that we could preserve our heritage throughout the state and keep things like that from happening. Excuse me. So just doing a little bit of a deeper dive here. Our mission covers 3 specific areas. And this is an important reminder for all of us. So we have archaeology as part of our mission areas. So we are working to preserve archaeological sites throughout the state, advocate for those, historic cemeteries, all those sort of resources. Also, the architectural built environment is obviously part of our mission. That makes sense. And then under this third bucket of historic preservation is kind of how we see our work as historic preservation being part of healthy communities, being part of affordable housing solutions. Like historic preservation is part of a bigger picture. And that's how we fall into that third mission area there. And then why we even bother to have the mission that we do kind of centers around, why protect historic places. And Mike, I will turn that over to you if you want to talk us through that piece.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Cosden, current board president for the Florida Trust for Historic Preservation, and I'm excited that you're here to kind of learn about a little bit about what we do and why we think it's important. So to talk a little bit about why we believe it's important to protect historic places, um, if you would advance to the next slide, Melissa. Thank you. Great teamwork. There are a ton of different reasons why people believe historic preservation is important. And one of the things that I think is great about our organization is that we're statewide in our reach. And we talk to constituents, we talk to preservationists, people that are advocates from all around the state, like hello, Harry from Venice. Good to see you. Um, and they tell us what's important about their historic places and what they do for their communities. So it could be about protecting cultural identity, preserving architectural legacy, supporting neighborhoods. I'm not going to read the entire list, but it can also be economic, it can be cultural, it can be environmental reasons, it can be reasons that span multiple platforms, like Melissa talked about. You want to support affordable housing and you want to support historic preservation. And I'm seeing people from around the state, so that's awesome. We're glad to have that representation. Melissa, if you want to flip to the next slide. It ties right into what historic preservation is. And as I was kind of hinting at, it really is something different to different people. So we've got a great photo here from one of our outings that we did as an organization. You can see a little bit of information there. This is a National Historic Landmark that's listed on the National Register of Historic Places, although none of the original buildings are still in place. And there are other places like that throughout the state. So historic preservation can be difficult to pin down. It's not always related to a physical structure that has an architectural significance. It's sometimes a cultural significance or relevance to the community or the broader kind of span of history. You want to flip the slide, Melissa? Thank you. And here we have some information from ideas from people around the state about what historic preservation is to them. And I think these are awesome because it speaks to the diversity of viewpoints going into this field. So you've got comments like, how do you define historic preservation? It's about my ancestors. How did they get here? And what are we going to do about it? Or it could be, I have a house that's 100 years old. Imagine how many families that home is sheltered in their stories. About preserving the actual buildings, but for me, it's the stories. We hear that a lot. It's the stories that are important and make people feel significance for a place. Preservation reflects the culture of a community. That's something we hear all the time in Florida with the pace of development and the pace of change here, that the response has to be, we need to preserve what's important to us before it's gone. And then preservation reflects the culture of a community. When you lose too much, your culture is gone. I love that line. Your community could be anywhere. So historic places are one of the things that create placemaking. But on top of that, there are also economic impacts that historic preservation generates. So this is an annual measurement of impacts. And it probably would be greater today, but it's the most recent info we have. Up to 123,000 jobs a year are generated by historic preservation, up to $120 million in federal historic tax credit incentives, billions of dollars generated by rehabbing historic properties. And then if you look at why people visit Florida, 63 million talked about visiting a historic place in Florida. So it's obviously impacting tourism as well. You don't mind flipping the slide there, Melissa? And I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Mike. Hopefully that helped to provide some context, around why we do what we do and why our mission is what it is. As a charitable nonprofit, everything that we do needs to drive that mission forward. So it really is the way that we get work done. So just from an organizational standpoint, just so you kind of all know, I'm at the Florida Trust House in Tallahassee, Florida. That is the organization's headquarters. Daphne is also here. We have a small but mighty team of folks that works here, and it's the kind of paid staff that works to run the organization. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means and what that looks like. But then we are just a tiny tip of the iceberg. I think if you look at preservation as a movement nationwide, the people who get paid to do it are the very tiniest portion. the real movement and magic happens through volunteer work. So we have a 23-member board of directors that represents people throughout the state. We're very mindful of being diverse in our positions on the board in many different ways. We want to be geographically diverse. We want to have diverse backgrounds and experiences and expertise, racially diverse. We want to be very reflective of who Florida is overall. So we have a big board. 23 people is a big amount of people. But our bylaws say that we can have, I believe, up to either 30 or 32. So we could have even more people at that table. We'd have to get progressively bigger tables to make that happen. So our board are all volunteers. And then we break down, as we'll talk about, I can advance the slide to give you a little teaser. We break down that work into 4 core areas. And so within each of these core focus areas, there are even more volunteers that work throughout the state to make this happen. And for those of you who are familiar with nonprofits, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The volunteers and are the people who make it happen for sure. So our 4 key focus areas to support our mission are around connecting with preservationists around the state and making sure they have the information they need to do the work that is needed in their individual communities. We really did a strategic overview in 2020 during COVID. We really did some soul searching as an organization. And we realized that our value and what made us different than any other organization in Florida was our ability to be scalable and to provide solutions statewide. And so we really have focused on doing that throughout the state. And this is, I think, part of that, what we're doing right now. The next thing for us is advocacy. As a nonprofit, we can advocate in ways that city staff, preservation staff throughout the state couldn't advocate, or, the Division of Historical Resources staff, they cannot advocate, but we can because we are a nonprofit. So we realize a big part of our value is around that advocacy function. Our third core focus is around education. Obviously, for preservation to happen, people need to know about it and know about the tools that you need and the resources that are available to do that work. So we really lean into that role as well. And then fourth, to make our mission happen, we need to be responsible stewards for historic properties around the state. So for us, that is the physical property that we own here in Tallahassee, the Florida Trust House, but we also hold easements on properties throughout the state. So we need to make sure that we are responsibly managing those locations as well. So we kind of rolled all of that into our strategic roadmap here. So you can see those 4 main strategic focus areas here are illustrated as pillars with a mission on top, which is a nice like architectural kind of rendering here for our mission. So I wanted to point out that we just talked about our 4 strategic focus areas, but to accomplish that, we need to be a well-run, efficient, effective, trustworthy nonprofit that people are aware of and know what we do. So supporting our pillars are these foundational elements that we just need to do to make sure we are a well-run nonprofit. So for us to be a well-run nonprofit, to support our strategic pillars and accomplish our mission, we need to make sure that people are aware of us, and we need to be consistent in our branding so that people know who we are and they know they can trust us. We need to be a well-run nonprofit that is transparent in our messaging and our financials. It is well run. Our board governance is very well run and thoughtful and mindful, and we're transparent with that as well. And then financially, we need to have money to make the organization work as well, which is the secret struggle of a nonprofit. Maybe not so secret, but you have to have real financial security to be able to accomplish your mission. So when you look at the supporting foundational elements and then also our pillars, you can see in the smaller font the kind of words beneath them. And those are the committees that fall into those areas. So for Connect that I talked about, we have our regional council committee, our membership committee, our awards committee, Levin to Save committee, a Connect with State committee, because engagement with our committee is a good way to get involved, better involved with the Florida Trust. So I just wanted to kind of do an overview of some of those committees that are available for us. So I'm just going to do a real quick dive into these 4 pillar areas because it will do a little bit of more fleshing out of those different committees and opportunities to get involved. But again, please interrupt me. I'm just going to check chat real quick. If you have any specific questions about these areas or how you could get involved in those, please feel free to interrupt me. I'll try to take a breath every once in a while so you can interrupt me. So our first area is our Connect pillar. So there we have exciting things like our 11 to Save program, which is the most endangered places around Florida, historical resources around Florida as nominated by the public. So that is a really wonderful public facing program that we do. And then affiliated with that is our relatively new 11 to Save grants program, which actually can give money to some of those 11 to Save locations that have a real tangible immediate need that we can help fill. We also connect with people throughout the state. Here we are, the board is with the Seminole Tribe of Florida to really get into our communities and be relevant in all these communities. We have created our relatively new also regional councils throughout the state. So everywhere in Florida is in a region, and there is an ambassador for each of these regions. And then those ambassadors lead meetings and communications and events throughout those regions throughout the year. I think Mike, maybe you're going to talk about that more later, so I won't belabor that point, but that exists as a regional council is one of our Connect areas. Our second area was around advocacy. This is definitely a way that you can engage, especially during session, but also outside of session. Preservation definitely happens at the local elected official level, at the state elected official level, and at the federal elected official level. So right now we've been pretty heavily focused on the state level since we are in session. So each year we do an advocacy day at the Capitol, and we talk with lawmakers about our legislative priorities that we set every year. So here were this year's priorities. We engage with stakeholders, we testify at committee hearings, and we are more than welcome and excited for folks to join us in those conversations. And if you can't be in Tallahassee physically, our advocacy newsletter that we share each week during session gives you kind of actionable steps that you can just kind of click and send an email to your lawmaker and let them know about these initiatives and why they're important to you. So that is definitely, our advocacy work is definitely one way that you can get involved with the Florida Trust. Again, really during session here in Florida, but outside of session, we would love to connect with you maybe through your regional councils or through us here at the Florida Trust and do visits with lawmakers in their home districts outside of session, because that is the way, you know, you can connect without the kind of hustle and bustle of session going on with committee meetings all the time, with you know, Senate floor votes happening all the time. You can just really meet with them where they are, and then you can have a conversation about the historic resources in your area that are important to you. And we can provide you with materials to help you set those meetings, and maybe, you know, have a regional ambassador join you if you'd like. But I think connecting outside of session is something we're going to really focus on this year. So we would love to have your support for that. Also next week, I'm going to DC as part of the kind of federal advocacy work that we do. There are really important things going on at the federal level. And again, I hope you're on our advocacy email list. If you're not, please just drop a note in the chat and Daphne will add you. But we actually don't have congressional authorization for the Historic Preservation Fund. It expired in 2023. So a big part of what I'm going to be talking to lawmakers about in DC next week is getting that authorization continued for another 25, 30 years. So we were used to having to advocate for you know, appropriations every year for the Historic Preservation Fund, but at least that authorization is there. But that it has expired. So we've really got to prove the value and get that re-upped in DC. So I don't want to go too long about advocacy because this is not an advocacy call, but your support around advocacy initiatives would be very greatly appreciated. Our third pillar was education. So a big way that we do that is our annual conference. This year, the Preservation on Main Street conference is going to be held here in Tallahassee as part of our city's 200th anniversary. It's going to be July 10th through the 13th, I believe. And this is a great way to engage as volunteers as well. We need folks who are moderators for all of the sessions, and there are a bajillion sessions, but those folks get to sit in on the sessions for free, and they get to announce who the speakers are and read their bios. So there's some great public speaking practice that can get woven into that. And then, you know, obviously be a part of helping us with this important initiative. So that is something we have coming up here soon. And Daphne can answer questions about that, or I can as well if you have any specific questions. Also in our education pillar, there is Insiders Tour. We'll be doing an Insiders Tour of Miami Beach in September this year. We'll keep you posted on that. So there's some other ways. If you're in Miami, you could volunteer there as well. And then finally, just quickly, I'll just remind everyone about that fourth pillar, the stewardship. This is two different pictures of the Florida Trust House here. The one on the right is from 1920, and the one on the left is from like 2018, I think. So you can see there's a lot of similarities still between these pictures, which is great. But if you're in Tallahassee, we could always use some help here on the work that we need to do around the Florida Trust House itself. And then if you're not here in Tallahassee, we do have easements around the state, and we are always working to maintain our easement program and do inspections of our local easements. So if that is something that you're interested in, we can always talk more about that. So that is really my overview of the work that we do and who we are as the Florida Trust. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have about that piece, but oh, okay, good. I'm seeing some. Okay, I'm reading the questions now. Okay, that is a great question about the trades. We'll talk about that at the question and answer piece. But that, thank you for putting that out there so we don't forget. So what I thought we could do now that we've got that context out of the way is hear from our two preservation / Florida Trust experts, and just kind of hear their stories, their path they've taken with preservation in the Florida Trust. And then kind of go from there. So Mike, do you want to go first?
Absolutely. Yeah. Happy to share, and hopefully it will illuminate some ways that people could get involved. So my background, I've worked at a historic home site here in Southwest Florida since 2011. So I was involved in a very practical way, I guess, in historic preservation. And I started attending the Preservation on Main Street conferences, which Melissa talked about. This year's is going to be in Tallahassee. And if you're interested or curious about what the work that the preservation at the Florida Trust does is, or preservation in Florida in general, I definitely encourage you to attend that conference if you're able to. So I attended that in 2017, 2018, and really one panel from that conference really made me interested in getting involved with the Florida Trust, and that was an underrepresented history panel. People talking about places around the state that represent underrepresented histories in our state's history. It was really great. It was very eye-opening, and it really made me see historic preservation in this light as something that could really be a powerful tool for changing the way people thought about history and our state in general. So that made me really interested. I had the opportunity to serve on a marketing committee. So the first suggestion I had for what you want to do if you're interested in the trust is attend Preservation on Main Street. And the second is maybe we can suck you in through committee work. That's what happened with me. But I was very fortunate to get to serve on the marketing committee because I had a little bit of experience in that field. And it just drew me in more and more to the mission of the trust and made me more interested in serving. And eventually when I had the opportunity to join the board, and then work in a couple different capacities on the board, I jumped at that as soon as I was able to. So I think attending POMS, getting involved with committee work as a way to dip your toe in the mission of the trust and getting involved with the organization are great options. And if anyone on this Zoom is interested, feel free to drop something in the chat or get in touch afterwards, and we can talk about what type of committee work might be available. But there's always opportunities to use the talents of people that are interested in preservation. The other thing that Melissa touched on that I wanted to mention that I've been a part of is the regional councils. The regional council program, the regional ambassador program is also relatively new, but in the last few years, it's become a really integral part of what the trust does. And what it does is allows us to stay more in touch with what's happening in different communities around the state, to stay in touch with people that are interested in preservation, but also for us to be listening, for them to be communicating information to us. This place is important. We're concerned about this particular issue in our community, those kinds of things. So that's another way that you can get involved that I think is relatively easy to do. Get in touch. We can put you in touch with the regional ambassador, and they can tell you when the next event or Zoom call or phone call is in your community. And you can hear and talk about issues that are important right in your own neighborhood. So those are my plugs for ways that you could get involved with the trust today. If you're interested, attend our conference, join the regional council, or go to one of their meetings, or talk to us about committee.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. And I was there at that conference for that session. So it's been a crazy journey. Um, thank you so much for sharing that. And I just wanted to remind folks that when we're done with all this, if you have anything that we've mentioned that you want to follow up on, you can email Stephanie, you can email me, you can put it in the chat. We just want to make sure we give you the next step that you need to go forward. So Jenny, look what I did on the slides here.
That looks fantastic. It's
So
like
just tell me
magic.
when you want me to go to the next one, I'll do it.
Okay. All right. So if I'm up, I'll introduce myself. I'm Jenny Wolf. As Melissa said, I'm the past president of the Florida Trust. So just this past summer, turned over the reins to Mike, and I've been involved with the organization directly since 2014. That's when I joined the board, and I would like to convey that for some people, I think back in the day, you could think of the Florida Trust as being the highest echelon of preservation practitioners. And at the time I joined, I was 3 years into my career with the city of St. Augustine. I had done an undergraduate and graduate studies in historic preservation at the University of Florida. So it wasn't my first foray into preservation, but I do feel like the organization has gotten younger and more diverse in the last 10 years. And so I just want to encourage anyone who might feel like you don't think you have enough experience yet. That's just not the case. We have so many fun things to get involved with. And that was the purpose of sharing some of the photos that I've selected. The three things that I'm going to touch on do reiterate some of what Mike has already talked about, but I just want to expand on what those opportunities really mean. So for instance, planning our conferences really talks about an opportunity to make it fun. We had the opportunity to work when the Florida APA conference was in Jacksonville. The Florida Trust hosted a meet and greet and a tour of one of the breweries in Jacksonville. So it was a beers preservation thing in a number of ways. So in the middle of the screen is our now Vice President, Ennis Davis, giving a little bit of a tour and background of the Florida Trust. But what I wanted to say is, some of our underrepresented panels that we've done have brought in people from South Carolina, like Joe McGill and the Slave Dwelling Project. Is really fun because we went to Kingsley Plantation and he did his thing where he spent the night in one of the cabins there. And then later on that week at our conference, he gave a talk going through that experience, but also weaving it into some of the other experiences that he's had in that work across the country. And some of our other speakers are more from rural areas, like we had a speaker from a community in Sumter County, Florida. And we've had folks from St. Augustine and Apalachicola, small communities, as well as large communities. And so what you can do is you can look to your own backyard and say, you know what, I think there's an important story that could be shared here. And, you may know the history up and down, but not everyone else in Florida does. And we really want the opportunity to showcase that Florida is more than Disney, which a lot of our transplants may not know yet. And I myself am a transplant, although I've been here over 20 years. I have grown to love and learn a lot more about Florida's heritage. So there's a lot to share. So let's see what next do we have, Melissa, to show how much fun we have. Oh, the great places we get to go. Our insider tours is the other thing I wanted to expand on, because if you like to do event planning, this is a really important way to get involved because it takes so much work. It's also marketing, it's also fundraising, it's also storytelling. Fort Jefferson has an amazing history. And so one of our tours was from there, jumping off from Key West, where we had a great insider tour. And next, I think I have some photos from Apalachicola. So we learned about the major shrimping port that Apalachicola was, an oystery. And my little dog, unfortunately, I wasn't taking pictures of people. I'm not very good at that when I travel. It's always architecture. So I at least wanted to shove my dog in there. But in Apalachicola, we had a great insider tour of one of the house museums there, as well as one of the cemeteries. And we just had a great fellowship of people. And in St. Augustine, which was my background, my backyard at the time, by the way, I'm now in Pensacola, but I was in St. Augustine for 10 years, actually since 2011, when Mike started working down in Fort Myers at the Edison Estate. So that was interesting. We've been kind of honing our backyard expertise. But we put together an insider tour in St. Augustine. And again, the important thing of that was really bringing out the stories to different people. Here is the Lincolnville Museum, which was actually just rated the top 5 smallest American museums in the country. So they are doing a lot of great things. And through this work, we were able to not only partner with them, but also do a little bit of fundraising. And if you'll keep going, we had a great tour guide during the session that walked this group of about 20 or 30 people in a historic area. And that's something that I think a lot of people, of course, this was during COVID, but a lot of people enjoy doing the walking tours from somebody that's of that community. We ended up stopping in front of a house that was his mom's house, and she was still alive and thriving. And she came out to greet us. But it was a really neat opportunity to see that history firsthand. And you've also seen already some of Fort Mose, so we'll skip over that, but there is some exciting work being done there. But here's some more of the fun that we got to have. So we try to do things that are not only behind the scenes, but not only walking, but touring. Florida has so much coastline, and that means there's lots of different types of heritage, from archaeological heritage to military heritage, and just many different types of coastlines. So that's my excuse for taking us on a boat tour. And then, of course, colonial heritage is one of the neatest things. But this shows kind of some of the environments where we do our insider tours and have the types of receptions that get us all together and allow us an opportunity to meet each other. And I was going to put this slide at the beginning because I didn't want to end on a Debbie Downer note, but it's actually positive, because if there's nothing else that I could emphasize more, it's that being involved with the Florida Trust helps you make a difference. And it may be statewide, and it may be in a small area. And one of those things that we've been doing is doing some work after the hurricanes, going out and doing damage assessments with communities. We help connect resources to those places that need it, because a lot of people that may own, operate, or rent a historic property, they're not in it necessarily because it's an old property, and here they are confronted with this disaster and they just don't know what to do next. So we can come in and help them understand what's unique about their property, what financial resources are out there to help them. And in the case of Matlacha, we worked, Mike and I both did work a lot with the local community to help them understand that you can still recover from a disaster and still maintain your historic resources. And by the way, there's federal hazard mitigation funds that are out there. And there's also national compliance issues that are out there that, again, it's hard for people to navigate. So we try to help out with those as much as possible. And it's a lot of fun, it's rewarding, but it does make a difference. So I look forward to talking with you more and answering any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Jenny. I appreciate that. Real quick, while you're still unmuted, do you hear me or do you only hear the lawnmower? Because it's such a lovely day in Tallahassee that I have my window open, but is that a problem? No, we're okay? All right, just checking.
I would have known it was there.
So we're going to, we have left to talk about, Daphne is going to talk about whatever you want to actually, Daphne, but also how students can get involved. So we have that coming up. But I also wanted to take just a quick minute here before we move into questions and talk about something that we have created here at the Florida Trust that I think might answer some of the questions that we've had so far in the chat, but real tangible ways you can get involved. And that's around our preservation toolkit. So this is a resource that we've been working on for years. We received a grant from the National Trust for Historic Preservation to do this. It kind of lives under our Connect pillar that we all know so well now. But we realized that there was sometimes a gap in the accessibility and information that people need to make a real difference in their community in doing historic preservation work. Because we believe, Jenny and Mike and Daphne and I believe that you don't need to have any specific background or anybody's permission to be a preservationist. We can all care about and make a difference for the historic resources in our community. So we wanted to provide a toolkit for us that provides this information about how to get started. So if you will just give me, if you will give me a second, I will share our screen. This is a sneak preview of our new website that we are doing mostly through volunteer labor, I should point out. So if you're a web person, we could use you. We need all kinds here. But this is a preservation toolkit. It's going to be available on our new website, which we will launch here very soon. But it's also going to be workshops that we can do in communities around the state. So I'll talk about it just for a hot second. And then if it's something you think that would be helpful for your community, you can shoot Daphne a note and we can figure out ways to get there with you, because these are also print documents and workshops that we could do. So there are 5 different sections. There's one that's kind of an introduction about what we're doing. And it talks about just really getting started with preservation. So Historic Preservation 101. What do you preserve? Like, why do you preserve it? What different kind of resources are there? There's tangible, there's intangible. What does all that mean? We know that there is a disconnect with language oftentimes with historic preservation. So we also have a glossary as part of our toolkit. So if you just have one word that people keep using and you don't know what it means, you can go to our glossary and check that out. But Angel, to your point, which I think is a good one, we have a whole section that is a hands-on guide to historic preservation. So if what folks in your community really need is a hands-on guide to historic preservation, then this is, I think, a great place for them to get started. We have like checklists. We have ongoing maintenance that you could do if you were the owner of a historic resource or historic building. We do it kind of by season there. There's a whole section about historic cemeteries. We also have a page in here where we have different building types and like label it so we can all be on the same page and know what we're talking about. So this is a way that we are hoping to make a difference in a scalable way in our communities throughout the state, but it is also a way that you can help as well, because you can share information about this. If you would like us to do a workshop in your community, you can let us know about this. It's just kind of another tool that we can connect on. And just to piggyback off what you were saying, Jenny, our hurricane response committee, even though it is not hurricane season yet, we are, being proactive and putting our team together. So if you're not already on the hurricane response committee, if you want to just send again Daphne a note, we just have a Google Drive that we keep track of people and where they are in the state. And then, if a storm comes and you're in Fort Myers like Mike was, they can kind of be our eyes on the street, which is very helpful because obviously the Division of Historical Resources and doesn't have offices around the state. So we can get folks on the street and get a real life kind of pulse check quicker through your help. So Daphne, I'll stop sharing that. And everyone on this call, hopefully you get our e-newsletters. If you don't, let Daphne know. But that will certainly announce when our new website is up, which will be when the new toolkit is online as well. So we've got our ongoing monthly newsletters that hopefully you receive. Then we have our advocacy newsletters that are weekly during session. So we got a couple of those left if you'd like to be added, if you're not already. And then Daphne, I'm going to share the screen again for your student slides. Is that right?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You
Hey
are
everyone, I am Daphne Kirkpatrick. As Melissa said, I'm the Business and Communications Manager for the Florida Trust here in Tallahassee. I'm very happy to be here with you today. Thank you for joining us. So I wanted to do just a little quick slide for any students among us. But if there are no students here, this is still useful for everyone because these are ways to get involved that anyone can participate in. So number one, of course, is become a member. Uh, we we love growing the Florida Trust family. You can get unique benefits. You will be getting our Preservationist magazine twice a year or even 3 times a year. You can, as Melissa said, sign up for our advocacy mailing list to get updates during session. You can become a volunteer or intern with us. We need all the help we can get. As Melissa mentioned, we're a small team. So if you have some free time, let us know. And I will put in the link to the volunteer form if you're interested in that. You can attend the Preservation Mainstream Conference, continue attending our lunch and learns. My very favorite way to get involved is submitting an 11 to Save nomination. 11 to Save nominations always come from the public, and we want to know about the historic and archaeological sites that are important to you in your region, because we cannot see everything from Tallahassee. So if you have the time to do that and you know a resource that needs help or an individual project or organization that performs excellently in historic preservation, it should be and their story should be shared, please nominate them for an award. If you are on social media, we have a Facebook and Instagram page. We also have LinkedIn. You can find us there. And of course, we have our website where you can join our newsletter. And finally, if you'd like to get merch, we have released, as you may already know, our 45th anniversary stickers, pins, and t-shirts, and we will be adding things there. So please make sure to check our store. I really love the navy t-shirt. It was the first thing I bought, and I would never regret it. So thank you again for being here. We can move on to questions, but before we do that, oh, sorry, Melissa, I saw you had the slide with Linda there.
I went the wrong way with the button. That's
Oh,
on me.
all right. So
Sorry.
let's
All right.
address the questions.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Daphne. Those are great ways to tangibly get involved. And if you wouldn't mind, I put the volunteer form in the chat. I put the membership form in the chat. But maybe we could do the link for the awards and the 11 to Save and the merchandise as well, just so it's all there.
Yes.
And we'll also do an email follow-up with all this too, if you don't want to deal with the chat. So what questions do we have? I'm gonna go through, okay. Shannon asked, what are all of the different committees that you can serve on? So if you guys will forgive me, I'll go back on the slides. So we can look at that. And then Mike and Jenny, you can just hop in and share your thoughts on the ones that are best in your, in your experience, the best to serve on. Mike, or Jenny, do you guys want to jump in? Here's
Yeah. Sure. I'll just point out, so when we're looking at this, the committees that we're talking about, they're in more finer print. So I'm sorry, I'm scooching closer. One is Legislative Affairs Committee under Advocate, and under Connect, we have several committees. One is the Regional Councils. Then we have Membership, Awards, 11 to Save, and Connect with State. And then moving over to Educate, we have Programs, Education, and Annual Conference. And then our Stewardship, we have an Easement Committee and the Florida Trust House. So those are all of the committees that we have to work on. I think the ones that
well, there's other, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but the foundational elements, there are committees there too.
Thank you.
You're not done with the committees.
All right, so catch me up, Mike. What did I miss?
So we got PR and marketing, the past president's council, the executive committee, and then nominating committee and governance committees, which are kind of managing internal board structure. And then under financial security, budget and finance, investment and development. So there's a lot of committees. When I saw that question, I thought there's no way I can list all these committees
Oh, you did.
off the dome here. So I'm glad you had this list.
So, Shannon, that's a great question. And I think a good place to start, like when I started out with historic preservation several years ago, I had marketing and public relations background. So I started back in Nashville on the marketing committee as well, just because that was my background. But, you know, we need a ton of different experiences on our board and in our committees. So if you are a realtor, we absolutely need your insight on our marketing and brand or PR committee, on our regional councils committees for sure, because real estate is such an important part of preservation. If you are an accountant, please email Daphne right now. We need you, because for our nonprofit to work, we have to be a well-run nonprofit. And so it is always helpful to have that insight on our committees and in our teams. We have, you know, we're very fortunate to have some investment accounts and endowments. You know, if you are a financial advisor, we could use you. So there are, I think, no matter what your background is, there's a place that you could fit into the preservation movement in our committees as well. So if you have other specific questions about that, we can chat. Whatever is the easiest next step there.
I will add that I think it kind of came up earlier, but our board and our committees are definitely a working group. So one of the things about the Florida Trust is that you don't just get signed up to a committee, or if you do eventually become on the board, you definitely have a lot of opportunity to contribute directly your expertise. It's not just about financial resources, but it's also helping us do the work. So for instance, the website, you know, Melissa mentioned being done by volunteer work. A lot of that is a part of what Mike has been working on. And so that's something that he's going to be able to look back on and say, I contributed to that. So it's whatever one of those things are that you either want to learn more about or you already have experience in. You'll have an opportunity to do more of that with us.
Yeah, Mike, did you want to add anything to that?
No, that was a perfect answer.
That was really good.
That was great.
Angel, you had some really great questions around the next generation of trades, which I agree 100%. I actually have a daughter that I'm trying to encourage to be a part of that solution. And I think that would fall for us under education, really. So if that's something you're, you know, obviously that's an overarching problem for preservation, you know, overall. But if you are passionate about helping us, you know, educate folks about this, sharing the paths that are available and opportunities that are available, we would love to have that insight. And I would think maybe the education committee for that would be great, or the marketing brands, PR marketing, because we could help to market those. Those are just the things I'm thinking about off the top of my head. But Jenny and Mike and Daphne, if you guys have other thoughts, please share them.
Well, I'd like to ask Angel, I mean, what do you think are some things that we could be doing? We have window workshops and tours, but really, I think that's been a big problem for all of us, as even Harry said in his community. We all see where we're short-handed on having the craftspeople to do the work. So what do you know of any ideas that we can do to help promote the trades and educational opportunities that might be in technical schools, or, you know, do you have some ideas?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. So I do. There are some, you guys might be familiar with Lift Jacks over here. So there's another group called, I believe it's Jacks Youth Works or Youth Works Jacks. So they're taking teenage to young adults who are, I guess, impoverished, or I forget how they phrased it, where their environment isn't good for them, and they need a place to go. So they have a place to go practice their music. So they want to get into music. So they get exposed to various other careers other than go to college. Because I'm like, well, I'm not going to go to college. I don't want to go to college. So I had tried to team up with them a little bit, but I had an issue with insurance and then homeowners being willing to bring somebody who was actually arrested. I'm like, come on, like, I'll be there. So groups like that to take, I wish I know what term, endangered, I don't know what you call it, but also educated the small town communities, or our high school here, they have wood shop, but for whatever reason, the instructor feels that window preservation is above these kids. And I'm like, why do you think that? It's like, I need to like change your mind, because we were trying to do a workshop with the high school, a window workshop with the high school, the town of Orange Park, and myself teaching them. And he was just like, no, that's too hard for them. I'm like, what are you talking about? So even trying to go into the high schools and help them change that, I think it's crucial. And again, back to the point of education. And then a long time ago, a grade school had a career fair, and I got a chance to go to the career fair from preservation. And these were from 4th graders to 8th grade, and then the high school came afterwards. And a lot of them, that was the first time they ever even heard the term preservation. And I actually used Disney as an example. I'm like, Cinderella's castle, that place is preserved. If it wasn't, your brother couldn't see it 10 years from now. So they kind of, a bulb went down. I was like, oh, that's preservation. Like the Statue of Liberty, it has to be preserved. The Capitol building. So things that they are familiar with in their school that just never connected to, because no one's ever shown them that they connect. So if we can, I guess, start not at the high school level, but even before that, to just make them aware that this field exists and you can make a pretty decent living doing so. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but
Yeah, thank you, Angel. I think that's a really good idea, and I think that's one thing that I know we have done some workshops at the Florida Trust House, and maybe going out into schools would be another opportunity. So I think we'll definitely take that to heart.
Yeah, and if I can,
go ahead.
one more thing. Oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
So, I mean, there is the most common workshop is window workshop. Like that's just, I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, that's overdone, but I know it's necessary. But doing just a quick plaster workshop and finding a neighborhood or a home that needs that. And the Florida Trust goes through these areas that have been impacted by a hurricane or something like that, and they have these plaster walls that need to be fixed. And we can get ahead of the insurance companies to, they'll demo 4 feet, because that's the way sheetrock comes in, 4 feet wide. Just show them, hey, wait, stop a minute. We can show you how to repair this. And my Achilles tendon is that I tend to do things for free a lot to kind of just show you how to do it. But there's a way they can be shown, hey, wait, let me show you how to do this. And then they're like, oh, that's possible. Okay. And they see numbers, because in that scenario, it's actually cheaper to fix that plaster than to gut the whole thing and go back with drywall, because then it triggers a bunch of other codes that you have to comply with. So that's another angle from our perspective, showing them, hey, this stuff is more cost effective than what you're currently doing, and we can save you money if you preserve the building versus do a demo and whatever, re-drywall.
Thank you. I think that's exactly right. And actually, to your point, we have for future sections of our toolkit, we wanted to do outreach, and there's a little bit in there now for educational outreach for younger folks, but we wanted to beef that up and have a whole separate section on that. And also, I went to the WPA conference, the Window Preservation Alliance conference, and my 12-year-old came with me, and she absolutely reglazed her window. So if a 12-year-old can do it, I feel pretty sure that a high schooler could do it. So I think you're right about that, for sure. But I love, yeah, they were great suggestions. I love these, all this conversation, and so maybe you could help us with the education piece to kind of refine those programs moving forward. So thank you so much. I want to be mindful of our time together. So it's 12:28, so we only have 2 minutes left. I'd be happy to answer another question. I can move our presentation back to the last slide. Mike or Jenny, do you have kind of any closing thoughts that you'd like to share?
I do not.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Jenny said earlier. I think there is a place for everyone's talents who is interested in the mission of an organization. So if you have a talent to share or an issue that you're passionate about that you think is not being addressed right now, please get in touch.
Absolutely. So as Daphne mentioned, we'll do a follow-up email with everyone that is on the call today. Thank you so much for joining us. And then she'll include ways to kind of engage that we've mentioned today. So there'll be a lot of links that you can look at. And then you'll certainly have Daphne's email address as well. And then I just wanted to end with this slide that we'll be talking about our next Lunch and Learn, which will be March 14th. It'll be a Zoom Lunch and Learn as well. But we're going to do a deeper dive into our community outreach tool of our Florida Preservation Awards program, and how we are working this year to have that be a more inclusive tool that celebrates preservation around the state, of all different kinds of preservation from around the state. So thank you again for being with us today. I appreciate your time, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you, everyone.